Josh Frydenberg, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. So tomorrow you sit down with the states and territories finally. What happens if one of them says they're going to kill the NEG, they're going to vote against it? What happens then?
Well, it's clearly in everybody's interest that we reach agreement to move forward with the National Energy Guarantee at tomorrow's meeting. Bearing in mind there are a number of stages still to go. We need to release for exposure draft state legislation. We need to pass through the federal parliament legislation setting the emissions reduction targets, and we need to have it all in place by next year. This is absolutely critical for Australia's energy future, that the National Energy Guarantee is supported and is approved, because we know it's been developed by the independent experts, we know it's been backed by a broad cross-section of industry and business groups, and we know it's been supported by modelling showing that Australian households will be $550 a year better off with their power bill as a result of the National Energy Guarantee.
Notwithstanding that, again, what happens if one of them tomorrow says, we just cannot support this, we're going to vote against it? That does kill it off, doesn't it?
Well, the pressure on Victoria is to walk the talk. They say they want to lower people's power bills. They say they want to improve the reliability of the system. And they have been at the table for the better part of a year working with the Independent Energy Security Board and other members of the COAG Energy Council on finalising the National Energy Guarantee. Now, at the
so are you willing to give any ground to meet the sort of demands Victoria is making?
Well, a lot of these demands are nonsensical. For example, this idea that we need to put in regulation, not legislation, the emissions reduction targets. For a start, this is the responsibility of the federal government, not the state government. So it's a good example of overreach by Victoria. But secondly...
So you won't do that? There's no budging on the requirement to only change by legislation?
Well, it's nonsensical.
Right, so you're not budging on that?
Because what the sector needs... Well, we're not budging on that. What the sector wants is investment certainty. That is what legislating the target will do, and that is what Victoria itself did with its own state-based renewable energy target, and it's what the federal Labor Party did back in 2009 and 10 when they legislated changes to the renewable energy target.
What about the timing of reviews of the target? You've said a review in 2024. Victoria says every 3 years and 3 years in advance. Will you shift on that?
Well, again, this is a responsibility of the federal government, and we have said we'll do a review in 2024. And we still think that that is the reasonable time period. We'll continue to talk to Victoria, but this set of 11th hour demands, David, is determined and dictated to by the Greens, not by any common...
Okay, but it sounds like on the timing of reviews, there is some willingness to continue talking about the date at which the target's reviewed?
Well, look, let's continue to talk to Victoria, but they set forward 4 demands, and the point of their demands was really to virtue signal to the Greens, because it looks like it's the Greens, not the Labor Party, who are in control in Spring Street. They have been at the table for the better part of a year on this.
Now, and while you've said you won't budge on how the target is changed, you want it only by legislation, this question of the timing of changing it, when it would be reviewed, we're right to interpret that there is some ability to move, to give ground on that.
Look, we'll talk to Victoria. We are not acceding to their demands. They are being dictated to by the Greens. They need to stand up for the interests of Victorians and indeed not prevent a historic national reform, because if they do, they will be guaranteeing Victorians are subject to not only higher power prices but also the risks of blackouts, and that is not on. That's not what the energy users across Victoria want, and that is not what the farmers, the miners, the manufacturers, the small business sector, the energy users and the energy producers have told Australian governments over the course of these National Energy Guarantee consultations and deliberations.
They also want an assurance the target can't go down, can't be made lower. It can only be increased over time. Is that fair enough?
Well, you foresee a situation where a future Labor government comes in and sets a very high target, which costs jobs, deters investment, and sees people's power bills increase. At that time, the Labor Party might even seek to reduce its target. So again, their position doesn't make sense. You don't want to.
So you won't give in to that one?
Governments and parliaments like that. Well, again, they haven't made the case for that change, David. They have been at the table. They've had officials embedded in this process for the better part of a year. They have been supportive of the National Energy Guarantee. Indeed, employers across the state of Victoria have said, get it done. We've listened to the independent experts who do not have a political axe to grind. We have a policy which will reduce people's power bills. And in fact, the Labor Party is now saying, don't listen to the experts, let's listen to the Greens. Well, that's a recipe for higher power bills and for blackouts. That is not in anybody's interest.
So just finally on this NEG meeting tomorrow, best case scenario would seem you come out of tomorrow without it being killed off by one of the states, an agreement to keep talking next week. Is that about right? Is that what you're hoping for?
We would like to see in principle agreement to the National Energy Guarantee, and then, as I've always said, there will be a phone hookup with the states after the federal legislation has been through the coalition party room. This way, the states can all tick off the state legislation to go out for exposure draft, which is for a period of 4 weeks. This has always been the policy, and we've seen Labor states try to raise issues about the coalition party room. Well, there you have it. They're not giving the tick off until a phone hookup is had after it's been through the coalition party room. The only ones who seem to be now standing in the way of the National Energy Guarantee are 11th hour demands from Victoria, which are in nobody's interests and are certainly not in energy consumers' interests.
Can I turn, Minister, to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation and the government's $443 million contribution to this foundation? One of the main reasons you've given for this contribution is that, quote, the government chose the most appropriate organisation to partner with to leverage off the private sector's philanthropic efforts. You said they'd raised around $80 million themselves from the private sector. Is that still your understanding, that they raised that much money? Because that has certainly been contested today.
Well, what the foundation have said is that they have put together some $90 million over the course of their existence. Around 65 of that has come from the private sector, and around 25 has come from both state and federal governments over time. And as you know, Tony Burke, when he was the Environment Minister and Labor was in government, they contributed millions of dollars to the foundation and said at the time in a press release that this would help protect the unique values of the reef. Let's go back to the fact here, which is that the Reef Foundation is a reputable organisation made up of some of Australia's leading scientists. It is the science that will determine the investment decisions of the foundation. And the Commonwealth has made the single largest ever investment in reef conservation and foundation and preservation in Australia's history. It's been described by the head of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, who happens to be on the board of the foundation, as a game changer. It's been described by Australia's chief scientists as a great day for the reef and as a great day for science. And it's been described by the head of the tourism operators around the reef as a way of underpinning regional jobs in Queensland. The Labor Party, when they were in office, ignored the reef. They saw it went on the in danger watch list with UNESCO. They had 5 dredge disposal projects planned for the reef, and they failed to put in place a long-term plan. In direct contrast, David, we have a Reef 2050 plan with the Queensland Government. We've got it off the endangered watch list, and we've banned dredge disposal in the marine park.
This contribution isn't just a few $1 million. It's nearly $500 million without a tender process to an organisation that has, 6 staff. That's certainly never happened before. Again, you're confident that the claims this foundation's made about its fundraising activities in the past do stack up?
Well, the foundation itself has said that they've got audited accounts. We know that there is a 100-page partnership.
Was there any government probity of that? Any due diligence
and the foundation? The government has done extensive discussions and due diligence with the foundation, and we have made sure that they are the appropriate partner for us. Now, the government has made clear through the Department of Environment on its website and in a public submission to the Senate inquiry that this commitment to the foundation has complied with the Commonwealth grants process. The ANAO, the Audit Office, can follow the money trail. We would welcome continued scrutiny of this and the investment decisions that are made. The State Government of Queensland and the Commonwealth Government are consulted on investment decisions. Scientists determine where this money is being spent. Let's celebrate this contribution to the barrier reef. Let's spend the money wisely, and let's partner with a very reputable organisation, namely the Reef Foundation.
Josh Frydenberg, thanks for your time this afternoon.
Good to be with you.